Hello everyone, I'm Yuya from Yahoo Japan. Thank you for your time today. Today, I'd like to share with you a case study of the spread of passwordless in Yahoo Japan. Yahoo Japan provides services on various devices such as PCs, smartphones, and tablets. In 2018, we deployed authentication with File 2. Initially, we deployed it on Android Chrome and have been increasing the number of supported devices step by step. I'd like to introduce why and how Yahoo Japan has been working on file authentication and on other passwordless authentication methods. Before introducing the case study, let me quickly introduce Yahoo Japan. We provide main services such as media services, search services, e-commerce, loyalty programs, and advertising businesses. Yahoo Japan was founded in 1998, and its current monthly active user is 55 million. These issues are among the most significant password-related issues. First, attack to user accounts. There are various attacks caused by passwords, as shown on the next slide. Our users have been victimized. Second, loss of accounts. Our users often lost their accounts. Especially, forgetting a password or username often makes it impossible to sign in. These are types of attacks caused by passwords. I think brute force attack and reverse brute force attack are a major attack that you all know. Phishing is an attack to steal username and password by creating fake websites. This is also a major attack. Passwordless attack is an attempt to sign in using the list of passwords and username created. Lists used in this attack can also be created as a result of phishing. Man-in-the-middle attack is an attack that has been particularly on the increase recently. Microsoft recently announced an attack called adversary in the middle attack. This attack is an attack to circumvent multi-factor authentication, but such attacks are also occurring. This graph shows the number of reported phishing victims per month in Japan. And the number of phishing victims has been increasing in recent years. We speculate that the combination of username and password collected through phishing has also led to passwordless attack. In fact, especially in the last few years, we have seen an increase in the number of attacks as well. These numbers are the result of our previous survey on password usage. First, more than 50% of users reported using the same ID and password combination for more than 6 websites. Second, more than 60% of users said they use the same password across multiple websites. Finally, more than 70% of users reported using password to sign into websites. The fact that many users use the passwords and many users have the same password or ID across multiple websites makes passwordless attacks an effective attack method. Also, Yahoo Japan users actually had problems because of their password. Our users often forget their passwords, which accounted for the majority of account-related inquiries. There are also inquiries from Yahoo users who have forgotten their user IDs in addition to their passwords. At their peak, these inquiries accounted for 30% of all account-related inquiries. In order to solve these issues, we have decided to move to passwordless. We believe that going passwordless will improve not only security but also usability. From a security perspective, eliminating passwords will reduce damage, especially from passwordless attacks. And from a usability perspective, providing authentication methods that doesn't rely on memory. We can eliminate the situation where a user cannot sign in because they have forgotten. We have been working to improve security in various ways. But simply increasing security alone places a burden on users. And as a result, we have not been able to achieve a high level of security. For example, even if a highly secure authentication method is provided, it has no value if it is not used. We believe it is necessary to improve usability together and to communicate in a way that conveys the necessity to improve security. This will result not only in improved usability, but also in improved security. In our effort to go passwordless, we have taken 3 major actions. First, to provide an alternative authentication method to passwords. Second, to promote the disabling passwords on users' accounts. Third, to provide passwordless account registration. I'll introduce them one by one. Yahoo Japan provides SMS authentication and file with WebAuthn as passwordless authentication method. SMS authentication uses a one-time code sent via SMS. It is a very popular authentication method that can be used as long as the user has a smartphone. While with WebAuthn is an authentication method that everyone is familiar with. We are replacing conventional password authentication with these authentication methods. SMS authentication is an authentication method in which users sign in by entering a one-time code to a code sent via SMS. Nowadays, users are often required to register their phone number at account registration, and this is often used in terms of account recovery. SMS authentication can also be used as one element of two-factor authentication, but Yahoo Japan also uses it as one-factor authentication. Also, two-factor authentication is strong. We offer SMS authentication because we believe it is important to get rid of the use of password first. One was issue with SMS authentication is the user experience issue of having to enter one-time code. Efforts have been made for some time to solve this user experience issue. For some time, iOS has provided the ability to suggest one-time codes in received SMS, but today, one-time codes suggestion also available for Android and other operating systems through WebOTP API and new features of the input element. Here's an example of a one-time code suggestion implementation. In HTML, set the value one-time code to the autocomplete attribute of the input element. Then, in JavaScript, Use navigator.credential.get to extract the one-time code from the XML text. The extracted one-time code is then set to the value of the input element. The received one-time codes can be automatically entered into the form. In terms of user experience, before extracting the one-time code, a dialog box is displayed to ask the user for permission. Note that this approach is designed to prevent phishing by including the domain in SMS body and providing suggestions only for specified domains. Here we introduce the issue of two-factor authentication. So core two-factor authentication, in this case, show a pattern that combines a password and SMS authentication or a password and a smartphone one-time password application. In the consumer market, two-factor authentication has been faced problems in its widespread use. This is due to tedious initial setup and use. In fact, Yahoo Japan has been providing two-factor authentication since 2012, but it has not been very popular. Other companies have also reported in the past about the difficulty in spreading two-factor authentication. With this background, Yahoo Japan offers SMS authentication as one-factor authentication instead of two-factor authentication. However, there's no doubt that two-factor authentication is more secure. So we also promote file authentication to users who have set up SMS authentication. Next is about file authentication. File with WebAuthn uses a hardware authenticator to generate a public key, server pair, and browse position. When a smartphone is used as an authenticator, biometric authentication such as fingerprint or facial recognition is used. The authentication results of the device are signed and sent to the server, which verifies and authenticates the user. While authentication is a two-factor authentication because, for example, an iPhone is authenticated using fingerprint or facial recognition as well as position authentication, which means that the device is held in the user's position. Here is the status of Yahoo Japan's biometric support. For smartphones, both Android and iOS are now biometric compatible, both for apps and browsers. We supported File2 on iOS Safari, Android app, and Chrome, Windows browser, macOS browser. But on iOS app, we implemented with iOS Touch ID and Face ID APIs, not File2. Here is how we have been going passwordless so far. We supported SMS authentication in 2017 and started our efforts by providing authentication methods without using passwords. Then in 2018, we provide users to disable their own passwords and switch to passwordless authentication methods. Since 2018 October, we have been working on file support. Most recently, we supported File2 on Windows PC and macOS browsers in December 2021. Passwords rely on memory and are device-independent authentication methods. On the other hand, the authentication methods introduced so far in the passwordless approach are device-dependent. Therefore, there are issues when the same account is used across multiple devices or when a device is lost. When using multiple devices, SMS authentication is tedious because It requires the user to look at the SMS sent to their smartphone while using a PC. Also, file authentication requires setting up each device separately, especially when using a smartphone as an authenticator. If a device is lost, it will no longer be able to receive SMS and file authentication will not work. These issues are important topics in the passwordless promotion. One of the simplest and most important solutions is to have users register multiple authentication methods. This is both an effort to be prepared for situations such as lost devices and to set up the best authentication method for each device. Since file keys are device dependent, it is also a good practice to register file private keys on multiple devices. These issues are greatly improved by the passkeys introduced next. Passkeys solves the issue that file authentication is device dependent. Specifically, passkeys extend the experience in two ways. First, synchronize file credentials between devices that have been signed in with the same platform and say the same account. Second, enable smartphones to be used as roaming authenticators. This solves the issue of losing authentication method when a device is lost and the problem of having to re-register when using a new device. This solution will be a very significant change for the spread of the passwordless authentication. Passkeys has also benefited Yahoo Japan. This figure shows how file authentication can be used even with a new device without default configuration. If you register for file authentication on device 1, and then try to sign in to Yahoo Japan on a new device, signed in with the same account, you will be able to authenticate to Yahoo Japan without having to reconfigure your file authentication. This figure shows how users can sign into Yahoo Japan using a file-enabled smartphone as an authenticator, even on a device that has not yet been configured for file. Similar to the previous slide, while file set up on device 1, try to sign into Yahoo Japan on device 2. At this point, device 1 reads the QR code displayed on device 2. After that, when file authentication is performed on device 1, users can sign into Yahoo Japan on device 2. This allows sign-in with a file registration even on devices that are not file registered. The next initiative is to disable password. We provide disabling password function as well as password authentication method. We have a page like this, where the user's password is disabled when they opt in. Passwordless attacks can only be prevented by not only setting up password authentication methods, but also by disabling password-based authentication. Nevertheless, since users will be replacing their familiar authentication method with a passwordless authentication method, it is important to consider how to get users to set this up. Specifically, we make suggestions to users in situations where users feel inconvenienced by passwords. For example, we suggest a passwordless authentication method in a situation where a user resets their password. Or we suggest disabling the password along with setting a passwordless authentication method in a situation where the user is asked to re-authenticate. Users who will have their password disabled will continue to use Yahoo Japan. Users who have an account but do not use Yahoo Japan will not have their password disabled. Therefore, For accounts that have not signed into Yahoo Japan for a long time and have valid passwords, we deactivate the authentication method to prevent illegal access to the user's account. The final initiative is passwordless account registration. Yahoo Japan account registration does not ask for a password, but instead registers you as a passwordless account. Account registration requires the registration of a phone number, which is first registered as an account that signs in via SMS authentication. After that, it immediately prompts the user to register for file registration. Also, file authentication is device-dependent and requires phone number registration now. Passkeys may improve this in the future. Here are the results of Yahoo Japan's effort. We have been working on file authentication for 4 years. By the end of 2021, we will have 10 million users set up with file authentication. As a result of the various initiatives, user inquiries due to forgotten username or password were reduced by 25%. Not only were user issues resolved, but customer support response costs were also reduced. In addition, a comparison of file authentication and SMS authentication has shown that file authentication has a higher success rate during authentication. It has also reduced illegal access. Here are the results on the comparison of authentication methods in a little more detail. We provide several authentication methods and we compare 3 of them: biometrics, password, and SMS. Biometrics here is 5-2-based biometrics, which includes fallback to PIN and pattern authentication. First, average and median speed of biometrics is the fastest to complete authentication. Second, password and SMS have high variance while biometrics has low variance. We found that most users were authenticated in 3 to 8 seconds. Next, 88% of biometrics users complete authentication in less than 10 seconds. These results confirm that biometric authentication is superior to other authentication methods in the term of speed. That's all for the introduction of our case study. We have been working on passwordless to improve both security and usability. It's important not to add authentication methods, but how to promote it. To this end, it is important to provide users with an experience in which password authentication is convenient and it is reasonable to set up passwordless authentication. We believe that improving the user experience will result in improved security. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.